Hey, it's Michelle. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm giving you my August and September wrap up. I completely missed August, just couldn't do it, but I did read books in August and I read books in September as well, so we're gonna go over them real fast. I only read 7 books for those 2 months, so it should be a quick one, but let's get started. So the first book that I read was Dorothy Must Die by Danielle Page. I read this, but I DNF this maybe 100 pages in. I honestly cannot remember. August is such a blur, but I did read this for my book club, and I DNF'd it, and the consensus for my book club was that it was fine. Some people really liked it, other people also didn't finish it with me, so that makes me feel good about myself. But I can tell you that me personally, I do not care for the Wizard of Oz in the first place. So this being like kind of like a fan fiction retelling sort of thing of the Wizard of Oz didn't do anything for me. So I DNF'd this, totally fine. Didn't like it, that's okay. Basically what it's about is there's this girl named Amy Gum and she gets transported to Oz, and it's a premise where Dorothy is like went back to Oz and is kind of like evil, and that's as far as I got. I know that I didn't like that there were like characters introduced and you thought that they were going to be important and then they just like die or like disappear, and that's honestly all I can remember about Dorothy Must Die. So this was a DNF, and that's okay. The next book that I read was The UnhungEMU Nurse by Christina Lauren. I gave this 3 stars. I thought it was just okay. It definitely wasn't my favorite Christina Lauren. Honestly, for me, is anything going to be better than Autobiography by Christina Lauren? I don't know. I'm trying. I really like Christina Lauren's writing. However, anything that I've read by them that is their adult romance has just been like, okay, for me. Like, it hasn't been autobiography for me, so I give this 3 stars. This is about a girl named Olive and a boy named Ethan, is that correct? I don't know. And they go on her sister's honeymoon because her sister and everyone basically at the wedding got sick. So she goes on this honeymoon with Ethan, who is the who's the groom's brother. And it's a hate to love trope, which is fine. That's a fine trope. It was okay. I just like didn't really do anything for me. So yeah, I gave this 3 stars. It was fine. It was a little predictable. There's only so much you can do with the hate to love trope. Like, obviously you know they're gonna hook up, so okay. The next book that I read was another Christina Lauren book, and that is A Beautiful Bastard. This is their first book they wrote together, and it's actually Twilight fan fiction, or it's supposed to be, but I didn't really buy it. But good Lord, they had sex every chapter, and I didn't technically finish this because like they were already together and they were just like doing it, and I was bored, to be honest. So I gave this 2 stars. I honestly can't even remember. Hold on. Yes, I gave it 2 stars. It was something. It was not great writing. It was not a great premise. Basically, it's the hate to love trope, like in an office setting. So it was really smutty, kind of, but honestly, they were having sex so much, it was just like boring. So yeah, Beautiful Bastard. Those were the 3 books that I read in August. It was an interesting month, to say the least, and yeah. So then in September, I went on a completely different route and tried to reread my favorite book ever, and this really worked for me, and that is The Unexpected Everything by Morgan Matson. I actually read it on my phone. I was having like a hard time reading physical books my last month of pregnancy. I don't really know why, so I just read it on my phone, which I hadn't ever done before, but I gave this 5 stars. This is the 3rd time that I've read this book. I have talked about this book a shit ton, so I'm not gonna talk about it that much again. Just know that it got me out of a reading slump and I really enjoyed it, and I gave it 5 stars again, and I love Morgan Metzen and I love this book. So yeah. And then going a completely different route, I read Saga Volume 1 by Brian K. Vaughan? And yeah, I know he wrote the story and I don't know who the artist is. Hold on. Fiona Staples is the artist. I tried to read this before. I got it digitally from my online library and I tried to read it at work on like that, you know, on the computer, but it was so hard to read the bubbles, so I didn't. So I read it on my phone and I enjoyed it. It's definitely something I usually wouldn't read, but I needed something fast and easy. I'm pretty sure I read this in 45 minutes and I gave it 4 stars. I liked the art style. The story was okay. It was definitely not like any graphic novel I've ever read before. So yeah, 4 stars. I'll probably continue on with the rest of the graphic novels because my library has all of them. So yeah, 4 stars. And then the next book that I read was another reread, and that was Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. I actually read this in college and loved it so much that I didn't sell it back to my school bookstore. Like, I just kept it. It still has this U sticker on it. But I loved this book so much, and I hadn't read it in probably 5 or 6 years. So my digital library had it and I reread it. I actually gave it 5 stars the first time I read it, but this time I gave it 4 stars. It was just like a little hard to get through this time. I don't really know why. Maybe because I knew what was going to happen this time and I wasn't as captivated. And I also recently, I think last year, read the graphic novel of Kindred, so it wasn't like the first time I read this I was so captivated. I had no idea what was going to happen next and I was really impressed with the story. And this time, since I had already read it before and read the graphic novel not that long ago, I was just like about it. I think it was the writing. The writing honestly wasn't great, but the story itself is so crazy and so good and so important that I still gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It just didn't meet the whole 5 stars for me like it did the first time I read it. So yeah. And then the last book that I read for September was Well Met by Jen DeLuca. I gave this 3 stars. It was just okay for me. I really like adult romance with like a little bit of smut, but for some reason, and I don't know if it was because like I was reading this after I had a child and I was like focusing on other things, this is just okay for me. This is about Emily and Simon who meet over the summer, and she's involved in a Renaissance fair, and it's set in Maryland, which is super cool because that's where I'm from. So like I know all about Renaissance fairs, and yeah, so it was just fine. Like honestly, I'd probably read it again just for something quick and easy to read, but it wasn't like the best smutty romance I've ever read. So it was okay. That is everything that I have read in August and September. I'm currently listening to the audiobook of The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo for my book club. I've already read it, but I read the physical copy of it, so I'm listening to the audiobook this time because I know she narrates it, and so far it's really good. And then the second book that I'm reading is American Royals by Catherine McGee, and I'm about 150 pages into that, and so far so good. It took me a little while to figure out, like, it's 4 different perspectives so far in the book, and it took me a while to figure out who was who and where and what I was, but now I figured it out. It's really good. There's so much drama already. I'm only 150 pages in, so I'm liking it. That is everything. Thanks for watching my video. See you in my next one. Bye!